Today we're going to start a little mini series on pressure canning. So we're going to go over some stuff in the first 2 videos, and then we're going to do a couple canning projects to show you how to use the tanker in action. So this video right now, we're going to go ahead and talk about canners, which pressure canners I recommend and which one I use, and then also some 5 safety tips that you need to know when you're pressure canning. So first, let's talk about the different canners. There's a lot of different canners out there on the market. I actually own 2 different ones. I have the tanker here, which is made by Denali Canning, and I also have the All-American. I love them both, and I love them both for 2 different reasons. The one that I seem to pull the most for, and the one that I recommend for any beginner canner, is the tanker here. Now, here are a couple of reasons why I choose the tanker over the All-American. And the reason is it's lightweight, so it's very, very simple to store and then transport over to your stove. It's not super heavy. The other reason why I really highly recommend the tanker is because it's very simple to use. So if you are a beginner canner, this may be something that you look into. And the reason is that there are not a whole lot of steps involved. So there isn't the keeping the weight off, letting it vent for 10 minutes, putting the weight back on, and all of that. It also isn't with the All-American, you have to get your pegs in just right and twist them down. If it's not level in any way, that also is going to hinder you building pressure. So I highly recommend the tanker because it's just very, very simple to use. And you have the automatic vent system here. Your weight stays on all the time. Once your food is in the canner, you can go ahead and put your lid on. It locks right into place. So you don't have to worry about leveling it yourself and making sure each side gets screwed down appropriately. It just locks itself right into place. And when you're done canning, when the timer has gone off, after it has been in the canner for the processing time, you just turn your stove off and forget about it. There isn't a time limit on having to hurry up and get your food back out so that it doesn't seal down or anything like that. You just go ahead and turn off your stove and let it come back down to 0. And the longer you wait, the better, which is really beneficial for me in a busy life. And the last reason why I recommend the tanker is because it's suitable for all stovetops. There's not a lot of canners out there that will claim that. So you can use this on an induction stove, a glass top stove, an electric stove, or even a gas like mine. You can use it on anything. That's actually what drew me to try the tanker, was because I had a glass top stove. And I was using my All-American on it, where it very clearly states, do not use it on a glass top stove. So I was holding my breath every time I pressure can. I felt so easy the first time I used this, and I knew it was really simple and it was suitable for my style stove. So that is another reason why I highly recommend it. So if you are new to canning, new to pressure canning, and wondering which one to get, I'd highly recommend the tanker by Denali Canning. Now let's talk about 5 practices that you need to do that are safety measures when you're pressure canning. Number 1, always start with clean equipment. So you want to make sure your tanker is nice and clean. You want to make sure your jars are nice and clean, your lids and your ring. That is going to help with no cross-contamination, with no bacteria or anything getting into your jars. You want to make sure that your food is safe for your shelf. So starting with clean equipment is very, very essential. You don't need to sterilize your jars, but you do need to wash them in warm soapy water and get them nice and clean. I also like to make sure my canner is nice and clean. There isn't any food particles or anything inside my canner from a previous project, just to make sure that everything is sanitary and ready to go on in the canning process. Number 2, you want to make sure that your weight is appropriate for your elevation. So when you order the tanker, you're going to get a 10-pound and a 15-pound weight. Depending on where you live will depend on which one you're going to use. Now, each weight has its own valve stem that you would screw into place. So if you're using a 15-pound weight, you have a different valve stem than if you were using the 10-pound weight. I live in Missouri, and so I use a 15-pound weight. The easiest way to know what to use is to get online and look at your state and what your elevation is, and then you can find a canning chart that tells you exactly what you should pressure can for your elevation. Number 3 is to make sure you're using a canned approved recipe. Now, there are so many recipes out there that you can go ahead and grab from, and there's lots of herbal canners out there, and I would say I'm right there in the middle. I don't do I will use a few recipes that are not canning approved, so to speak, that are in a canning approved cookbook. But I do have some safeguards for myself in that, but I do not promote that because I want to make sure everybody is very safe. So make sure that you find cookbooks that are canning approved. One of my favorite cookbooks for the pressure canner is called The Complete Guide to Pressure Canning Cookbook. And I don't know how to say her last name. Her first name is Diana. And it has so many ready-made meals. It has broth recipes. It has so many canned beans with the chart. It's very, very useful in your journey to pressure canning. And they're very simple to use and actual meals that your family will love. There's nothing worse than going through the whole process of canning food, and then your family doesn't eat it. So there's no point in doing that. So finding recipes that are can approved and that your family will love is highly important, and I really recommend that cookbook. Number 4 is to make sure that you are processing your food for the amount of time in your can approved recipe. So if it's saying to process, in my case for broth, let's say, that's going to be a video that we do here in the future that you're going to be able to see in this mini course on how to can broth and stack them into the tanker here. But if you're going to do that, you need to process them for the right amount of time. And ours for broth is 20 minutes. Now, I am not going to start my timer for 20 minutes when my lid is on. I'm going to start that timer for 20 minutes once I have reached pressure and my weight starts to jiggle back and forth. So that's very important to know that and to make sure that you're only starting your timer and you're processing and it's rocking back and forth for the entire duration of your processing time, or your food may not be safe and you won't get a proper seal. And my 5th one is actually at the end of any kind of canning project, whether you're pressure canning or water bath canning, is how to store your jars. This is a big safety thing. I do not store my jars with the rings on. The ring's sole purpose in the canning project is to hold your lid into place while you go through the process and then while it cools down and seals itself. After that, it holds no purpose. Actually, it's unsafe to keep your jars on your shelf in your pantry with the ring on. And that is because you could potentially get a false seal by the temperature fluctuation of your home. So if your jars become unsealed for any reason, and it has happened to me, then your ring will hold it into place. Well, if your house heats back up, say in summer, it could seal itself back down and you would never know it came unsealed. That is very unsafe. If your ring is not on and your jar becomes unsealed for any reason, there is nothing holding it into place. So no matter what the temperature is in your home, whether it's hot, whether it's cold, no matter what, it cannot seal back down. And so that makes it, you will know immediately when it's not sealed. So for that reason, number 5 is a very important safety tip. No matter what kind of canner you're using, no matter if you're water bath, pressure canning, do not store your jars. Once your jars are sealed and you've checked your seals and you know that they're right, do not store them with the ring on.